Music belongs to God.
Social Security is the third rail of politics in America. Well, God is the third rail in rock and roll. You're not supposed to talk about God, even though most of the world believes in God. I think God's the great unexplored territory in rock and roll music.
We have come because we see this as a dark hour in the affairs of men. We are traditionally the idealists who staked our lives on the American dream during the first half of this decade.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Canary Cry Radio, episode number 186. We have a familiar guest today. We'll get to that in just a second. Basil is battling a frog in his throat, so he's not part of this little introduction here, but he's definitely part of the conversation, so you'll hear from him in a moment as well. Make sure to go to canarycry.support. We operate value for value on this podcast, which means the content is always free. And you, as the listener of the podcast, if you receive any value, whether it's edification, education, entertainment, the community, you get something out of it, you have the option, or maybe the calling, to produce the show with your time, talent, or treasure. And that is the value for value model. I think it's the only way you can truly podcast eventually, because if you have advertisers, if you have sponsors, if you have other things, then you can't really say everything you want to, because you can upset the hand that feeds, if you will. And we don't want any kind of corporate or government or institutional oversight in that way on this podcast. So it's truly a communal effort. It's a beautiful thing. So if you want to participate in that, go to canarycry.support to learn more. Shout out to the Canary Cry Supply Drop. These are people who are supporting the show monthly for $33.33. And as a thank you, these people get a quarterly supply drop, which can include all kinds of exclusive goodies that you can only get from the Canarium. And also shout out to the T-Shirt Council and everyone else who supports us monthly. Truly, if it wasn't for you guys, this show would not exist. And because of the amazing support of our producers, we've been able to publish a little bit more content this year. First, we got the Beyond the Verse mini documentaries on Bible topics that I've been pumping out every week for almost 20 weeks now. You can get that at the Canary Cry News Talk YouTube channel or Rumble channel or on X. And if you're just dying to get it early, then you can check out Canary Cry Clubhouse, which is every Thursday, hosted by your best buddy Basil. It's a call-in show, but he premieres the Beyond the Verse videos on Canary Cry Clubhouse and has about a 2-hour discussion with anybody who wants to call in. So if you've ever wanted to talk to Basil, this is your opportunity. Check out Canary Cry Clubhouse. And finally, the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel is back. I just published my I'm Back video, and hopefully I'll be putting stuff up there about once a week, but the content for that channel will be a kind of symbiosis with the entire Canary Cry empire, because of course we've been working on Canary Cry for the last 4.5 years, and YouTube channel has been pretty much dead, suspended. So that's enough from me. Today's guest, if you've been a longtime listener, you'd be familiar with him. His name is Sam Swanson. He's an American singer-songwriter with a soulful croon that occasionally spits bars. He's a full-time solo cover artist, wedding singer, and touring musician with over 2 decades and 15 albums of experience. You may remember him from God's Property Radio, and now as part of the band Slave to Servant. He's here to talk about a project that we participated in, that's Basil and I. So without further ado, Sam Swanson and the Red Tape LP.
Sam, thanks for being here, buddy. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. How are you, Basil?
I am so excited to talk with my buddy, Sam Swanson, from Slave to Servant, a man who is changing the world and pushing the bounds of what art even can be.
Well, I'm excited to speak to both the radio DJs of 66.6 FM, The Beast.
Yeah, which I think is a good opportunity to just jump right in it, because here's the thing, Sam. This has been a I'll say at least a background project for many, many years now. One going so long that I hadn't even honestly kind of remembered about it in a long, long time. But we're here to talk about, I think, a project that I think it's going to need some explaining because, of course, people know what we're about here, and they might be looking at the screen and looking at the graphics and wondering what exactly is going on here. So, of course, you're a friend of the show. Everybody knows you. You've been on so many episodes. You've been our colleague in podcasting since 2012, at least, something like that. But what has you here on the show with a album art that has what looks like a devil hand holding a cassette tape, which truly was the devil's medium for getting his message out online or in the world.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Spotify is probably working pretty well for him now. So
I was going to say, putting the sort of the devil or theming things around Satanism seems to be a really good way of getting the music industry to push your stuff out there.
Yeah, I actually did not use Spotify for this release, so you can only get this release on either Bandcamp exclusively, or I have CDs in my web store that people can order.
Take that, Satan.
That's right. Not today, Satan.
Well, we're here to talk about the red tape. Tell us what is the red tape?
Yes. So let's see. The last interview we did was when I released Escape Babylon. And it seems like there's this ongoing, I don't know, throughout my life as an artist, it takes a lot longer to get something out even when you're done with it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you're basically done with it, and it just takes maybe an extra couple of years to release it for some reason, and this was one of those, just as Escape Babylon was, and Singularity, those things would have been released far earlier, probably before 2020. But this one in particular came to me while I was recording Escape Babylon, summer of 2019, and I just had this idea. Specifically, I think back to the 90s, and I think back to the variety of genres and subgenres and things that we had. And I was kind of influenced by, are you familiar with Sublime?
Of course.
The band, yeah.
They had a kind of an obscure, their second album is entitled Robin the Hood. Mm. And it's kind of a mixtape before mixtapes existed. And it's got skits, it's got studio recordings, it's got 4-track recordings, it's just all over the place. So I think that was kind of the idea for the red tape, if I can find the earliest seed that it was planted for me. Coupled together with things like soundtracks from the 90s where they would throw all the dialogue on in between songs and kind of make I don't know what you would call that, but some sort of fan memorabilia, of the film.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And then you have artists of all kinds of genres on soundtracks. Like, that's a compilation. So, like, for instance, a great example would be like the Natural Born Killers soundtrack that Trent Reznor put together, which has just all the styles, And
yeah, I don't know. I think, not to get too deep on it too quick, but you really don't see this anymore on albums, which is the interstitials, the skits, the, little 30-second weird things in between songs. In the 90s and even the early 2000s, and I even think, some emo bands kind of would do this sort of thing, but integrate it into the songs. Back when an album was really a journey, a record was, you didn't skip tracks, you didn't, you just kind of press play and it rolls through, specifically with technology like, cassette tapes, 4 tracks or 8 tracks or whatever. There was no skipping songs. And so once you pressed play, it was like this, it was almost like a movie in a way. You would watch it or listen to it start to finish, mainly because the technology was so inconvenient that to try to change songs and find a different song was almost impossible.
I remember when the cassette decks advanced in technology where it would actually stop fast forwarding when there was a blank between songs. I thought that was
unbelievable.
My brain was blown at the time. So yes, we are
unbelievable.
Or how about this one, Gonz? Remember when you would be listening to a cassette in your Walkman and you'd be like, all right, this song's done. I know that because you knew the cassette so well, you'd flip to side B. Oh, this song's playing
yes,
right
you
now.
know,
Like,
you knew the flip side. Yes,
like,
you knew where you were on the other side of the. Oh my gosh, these children have no idea. These kids are spoiled with their YouTube and Spotify. My goodness.
So this album is sort of a weird throwback to almost a different time as well, which I think has some pretty interesting comments to make, considering what the topic and what the theme of the whole project is. But yes, okay, continue. You're hearkening back to a different age of the music industry, music technology, which I think has some interesting things to say.
And I think I also like the idea of a really long album. Like the idea of like when I think back to when Beastie Boys in the 90s, specifically like with Check Your Head and Ill Communication, like it's like, what are you guys doing? Like it was all over the place. You know, it was so different from the predecessors. But what I wanted to do was, while I was recording Escape Babylon, I was like, man, I make so many beats, I do score, I do whatever I do. I could make ska, I can make punk, I can make gospel, I can make dance music, I can make R&B and hip hop, all these things. But like, how would that work together on one record? Like if I just put like 11 new songs on an album that were all over the place, like people I don't think it would hit right, you know?
Yeah.
So how do I make it tie together? And I was like, oh, like a radio station broadcasting. And then it all just it was kind of like a flow state. And I remember talking to one of my buddy Kenny, who played on Escape Babylon actually in New York, about it, and he's like, that's a really cool idea. And so it just kept evolving as the summer went by in 2019. And then I guess I was finishing up Escape Babylon and the lockdowns happened. I remember your first big broadcast or your big live on CCNT, like you guys just started commenting on what's going on today, guys, you know, like out of nowhere on YouTube. But I was thinking, you guys need to be the DJs. You guys, we need to, and what better time than now? And like, I kind of thought that COVID was really just going to be 2 weeks and we would have flattened the curve, like, because
of course, we all
thought that was my thought.
We were all sold that, so
it made so much sense.
Not alone. Yeah.
But I also at the same time realized after a month that probably wasn't the case, and so I thought, what better time than really start recording this idea? And so I guess I started with a song called Red Tape, which is like an interlude. So to make sense of this, the track listing. So the idea was, let's put this in 3 parts. So 11, 11, 11, 33 tracks. We have 11 actual songs. We have 11 what I would call interludes, even though some of the interludes are like 5 minutes long, which is obnoxious. I get it. And then 11 sort of radio talk time, commercial, flipping through the dial kind of stuff. So that is the format of it, and it's all mixed up. So
it's presenting itself as a radio broadcast, and which is, again, you almost look. I hope I don't say something that you don't like here, but it's almost not an album in the way that you would think of an album. I mean, it really is like a piece of art, like almost like a radio play, but not quite a radio play. You know, it's something very interesting. And because people are seeing the names of the tracks here and they are seeing the artwork on the front, which, by the way, we had a very fun time playing the role that you asked us to play in this. I mean, yes. Let's be transparent. This is a pretty wacky thing. I mean, give some people the vibe for exactly the conceit behind. I mean, the radio station, and the topics and stuff like that.
Well, the idea was like, what if the radio that we have today, what if they just told the truth? Like, what if they just said, yes, we are subservient to the system. This is what's going on. There was no cleverness, no trickery, no hidden in plain sight. Just this is what it is. And sort of like with Basil and Gonz, you guys being Canary Cry Radio, as we know you, what would you guys do as like the antithesis of your roles currently as Watchmen? You know what I mean? So we basically just flipped the whole script, and the station's called 66.6 FM, The Beast. There are commercials for things that could kill you. There are commercials for things that will enslave you. There is my favorite might be the game show, honestly. Just because, and by the way, let me just say on that one, that was like the one that I think that was the last thing we pretty much recorded. Because I had like the idea for the rough script, like going back to Dr. Dre's The Chronic. There's a game show on The Chronic, the original one from '91, and that's what I was kind of going for in this. But this game show is called Uncomfortable Truths or Fake News. It breaks up the whole track listing pretty nicely, kind of smack dab in the middle, a little over half, but. And so I had the whole script, and this was my first time, by the way. I know I'm kind of a dinosaur when it comes to technology, but I had the questions, I had a lot of the information, and Gonz just basically plugged it into ChatGPT. This is my first experience with ChatGPT, and it pumped out a script. We modified it slightly, and there you go. That's the skit right there. But
so you're making this comment. I mean, the whole project, again, somebody might look at the imagery and read some of the things and be like, I don't know about this. What what are these guys doing? But, it's this very, I mean, honestly, if I can just say it outright, very honest. Like you said, it puts honesty back into the media, back into the music industry, back into advertising. It's almost, we know that there is a veil that is pulled over, anything coming out of the establishment, even the radio, even music, of course. We know what controls that, the Babylonian system. And, the most frustrating part about the whole beast system is that it presents itself in a very deceptive and effective manner as normal, as it's very similar to the They Live. You put on the glasses and you see what the advertisement really says. This is basic. Maybe that's the metaphor. This is listening to a radio station with the They Live glasses on.
No sugarcoating. It's just the raw Luciferianism in your face, not shy about it, in a sense.
And it comes across, it is obviously sort of satirical and wacky and outrageous, but the truth of the matter is, if you took away the veil, it is wacky and atrocious and like satirical, and that, we know that's how ridiculous that it is. So it really has this fun, eye-opening truth to it. Even if, you're uncomfortable with your buddies Basil and Gonz doing an advertisement for, GMO apples or something like that.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. You were Crawley and he's Beelzebub or Beelzebub.
Beelzebub.
Yes.
The name?
Right.
Yeah. So.
Your new favorite sort of Babylonian beast system, talk radio DJs.
Well, we started something, so there's got to be a part 2 to this. So I'm looking forward to doing.
There's
another
more.
One eventually.
There's more to the saga.
Yeah. So on the red tape on track 15, it's kind of like an interlude. There's a little hint, a little nod toward what could happen in the future, which the guy, I just basically interspersed a lot of people talking about red tape on news broadcasts, and at the end, the guy talks about. There's also not just red tape, but nowadays people are talking about environmental tape, like green tape too. And so I just like the whole ending of that is green tape too. So that's what's coming next. This one also, you can't see it on the art because all you're getting is the front cover, but the packaging on the CDs that I have, they shipped out yesterday, so I should get them in the next few days.
Sweet.
They're in these Digipack lights, which I've never gotten that kind of packaging, but I used the rated R logo to kind of go in between each track title on the back, and it looks like like you wrote all the tracks in on one of those re-recordable cassettes from the 90s or 80s.
Right.
But the next one is going to have a G because we're going to be sanitized, I believe, on that. And so the green tape. We'll talk more about that in the future because I'm just collecting the data and the seeds for it right now. So
I love it.
So tell me what you were trying to say with this whole thing. Give us your deep thoughts.
There's a lot to be said. I think just one, if you are somebody who likes to hike or you like to go to the gym, I think this is a really great hour and 33-minute listen in its entirety. It starts off with just this track called Moon Dialing, and I just took different artists from the past. I mean, it goes as far back as the 70s, I think. Is like there's some Marvin Gaye on there, there's Prince, there's D'Angelo, Billy Corgan, Lauryn Hill, Kanye West, Tupac. I'm trying to think of, I might be missing somebody, but all of them talking about music and God, which is something that's very kind of taboo in music, right? Like it's almost like hokey to mention God, right?
Yeah.
In music.
In the mainstream sort of secular industry.
Yeah.
Especially in that period, the period you're mentioning, it was definitely not about that in the mainstream.
And I think there's a lot to just unpack from that first track, but Marvin Gaye even talks about what I would consider where we're at, which is like, at some point, you're just going to get to do music and it'll be accepted, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the style is or the selling genre or subgenre or marketing plan is. It's like just, it'll be accepted to do anything. And so I felt like that. I've seen people, especially over the years, there are some artists that have been really I just made a record that's dubstep. I just made a metal record and it's the same artist. You're like, what? Like, you know?
Yeah, even with huge acts like, I think it was Lil Nas X or what's that white guy's name with all the tattoos on his face?
Post Malone?
I forget. Post Malone, right.
Yeah.
And they're doing country albums.
Yeah.
And
country is
they're
hip hop now. It's all
they're
become
just
one
as
thing.
much of a part of their brand, just as much a part of their discography. It's not even considered like a deviation from their career as a musician. It's just built right in.
Yeah, it's a result of digital music too. I remember when we first started getting all the new DAWs, the digital audio workstations. They come with packages of sound that are, just there, like samples for you to practice on or use or whatever. And a lot of those had different genres, a whole bunch of different genres. You can have like a country beat or a hip hop beat or whatever. So I think, a generation grew up with that. So yeah, they're going to be very eclectic in their music tastes. But back
to the God,
back
to
God,
part.
Yes.
Yeah. Back to the spiritual aspect. Cause obviously, the satire of this whole project, is barely satire. So keep walking me through where you got.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'll find that, a lot of the artists that I quoted in there come from a black church, to be honest. Like, so there's that at least foundation of some sort of deism of God, right? This idea of one true God, like some sort of belief in that. And I really like that they at least share that. Whereas I feel, as somebody who played in like punk rock, that is just not there. Like in any sort of punk rock, especially like the hippie movement, like just a lot of rock music, I feel like we've kind of not lost our way, but I don't know if we ever had it, like unless it was segmented from it. Like you couldn't put them together. But like hip hop came from a place, and Lauryn Hill talks about this in there. She talks about how hip hop had a strong voice when it was new, when it came out, and then it became the voice of the corporate.
And
that's
CIA.
Yeah, and that's where we are today. But I feel like, and as a Christian, right, as somebody who believes in Yeshua, I feel like that's in a lot of ways that I feel like our Christianity has really gone that way. Like we got the cow got fat. And it's bloated. It's about to get slaughtered. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so there's that's kind of one of my messages. I don't know if it comes across on here, but it's just to renew your mind, and to be aware of the things that maybe even there's truths that I'm holding on to, with like, try to keep an open fist and be like, okay, maybe this isn't like a salvation issue. Maybe this isn't, maybe there are darker forces at work and I have to be a little bit more vigilant, I don't know if that makes a little bit of sense.
No, I think that's exactly right. I think that thing you just said is really something that believers, maybe even take for granted a little bit. And what I love about the way that you've laid out this project is, when it goes, there's obviously a theme of, entertainment and music and show business is all in the servitude of darkness. And even when it's something so benign as an advertisement for a pharmaceutical, or a game show on a radio station or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's a the thing that I found so funny in our parts, the interstitials, the radio bits, was it had an unmistakable sort of, I don't want to say veneer as if it's not real, but it had this unmistakable flavor of, oh, this is coming straight from the pits of hell. However, in essence, what was being advertised, or what was actually being said, was so kind of benign and boring and normal. Maybe worst part was normal. And I don't mean boring as in like the actual the track was boring.
No, you mean desensitizing.
That's what yes. It reveals this desensitized nature. Even as Christians, like you say, you interact with mainstream, music industry. We all know deep down that it's deeply satanic and deeply occult and rooted in it, at the very best, the darkness that resides in man. I mean, even today, you're looking at the Diddy trials going on. It's just a total mess. Yeah. The illusion has been completely dispelled, and I think that's really well articulated or presented.
It's captured,
really,
in the
satirically
piece.
And artistically in this piece, in that you as the listener that these radio DJs are in the service of Satan. Maybe they're not like worshiping Satan, but they just don't really know everything about them. Their names, their voice, their advertisements, their everything are quite obviously controlled by the powers of darkness. And yet we're not even sure if they actually know that.
That's true.
It's just kind of part of who they are.
Yeah, and I wanted to give credit because one of the Canary Cry listeners, Eric Runkle is his name. He's the one who scripted all of the skits except for the game show.
Runk Smash.
So he reached out with that. Also, more to say about like not only the intro, but you asked about what's this red tape all about. The color red is really, I mean, you can go to track 14 and really find out more info on like where I tie so many red things together. And you'll see it if you ever get your hands on a CD or a poster of it. There's a lot of art that I had my buddy create around everything. But the main message I would say is that it's do you guys know the origination of the red tape? Like what red tape means?
I don't know. Tell me.
So I'm going to read from Wikipedia. I started researching this in 2019, but so it is generally believed that the term red tape originated in the early 16th century with the Spanish administration of Charles V, King of Spain and the Holy Emperor, who started to use red tape in an effort to modernize the administration that was running his vast empire. The red tape was used to bind the most important administrative dossiers that required immediate discussion by the Council of State and separate them from files that were treated in an ordinary administrative way, which were bound with ordinary string. So there's your OG origination, as at least that we think
bureaucracy
of where that came from.
Yeah.
Yes, bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And that's something that, man, like I feel like we could just go track by track at any point, and we could go on multiple tangents. Like this is like a discussion, like where you
Yeah.
could get people together. Like, what did you think about this? What is he saying? Kind of thing. But so red is our blood. Red is the life that's being extracted from us on a daily basis in this system that is based in entropy. And it starts, you go through on this whole journey, and you end with a song called The Instructions, which is a gospel song, and it gives you the instructions on whose blood can make up for that.
I love it.
Yeah, I loved the fact red tape is, I mean, I guess we always knew that it was representative of bureaucracy, of bureaucratic, red tape. That was always a
Bureaucratic
thing.
red tape, yeah.
The fact that it, comes from such a, I don't know if you technically call it ancient, but it was, I'll say it, ancient, medieval sort of reference is, I never would have guessed that. And I have gone off before, and longtime listeners will remember this, about bureaucracy as its own sort of almost satanic counterfeit of the order of God, like the order of creation. It is built right in, and it happens, and everything's in its place, and things just happen in the order in which they are meant to. Bureaucracy itself, which, look, you get into the paperwork, you get into the structure of the legal system. It all has occult roots, as I don't even know how far back I want to go into this, but, our entire legal system, from the words that are written to the language that it's written in, to the vestments of the priests and the judges, to the incantations of the legal proceedings and things like this, it very much has sort of this occult outgrowth, or this occult source. And by occult, it's not just necessarily Satanism or something, but man's unending desire to bind creation to his own rules, to rewrite the order in which reality happens and hold them to a standard. I mean, that is really essentially what witchcraft is, what sorcery is in these senses. And so red tape, being a bureaucratic, almost incantation, almost sacrament in this case, going all the way back to medieval times. And now it's just kind of a throwaway piece of language that we use. Oh, there's too much red tape there. Oh, we got to get through the red tape. Sort of declaring every time red tape stops us, or we talk about red tape, declaring the sort of current mastery of human beings and their will and their witchcraft over the natural order of things. So, look, not everybody is as obsessed with the minutia of human society and its sort of occult roots and anti-biblical roots as far as that goes. But it is reflected really incredibly in the work you've done here. So good job.
Thanks. There's a track on there called Traffic King, and that features Kanye West. It's an interlude. And
oh boy.
Yeah.
Here we go.
By the way, there's a whole lot of people on here that probably would get me canceled for sampling, like such as Louise Farrakhan, and right now I think Kanye is the most hated person on the planet. But this was when he was doing his actually this was from 2019 when he did Jesus is King. And it was his first big interview on the record, and it was like taken at his ranch, but he went on this little rant about trafficking, about billboards, about spirits, about just, he was using different words, and it weaves all together so well with what you were just talking about. Like that's a good little interlude you should check out.
I will. We will. We all will. Because it's kind of part of the fun of what you've done here is, like I was saying before, it's not a collection of pieces of art that you've put together. It's the entire thing is its own statement, its own piece that you really want to experience all the way through. Now, it's interesting how music in today's world, as far as how we interact with it day to day, the concept of an album, the concept of a record has kind of been so diluted that it just kind of means a collection of songs now. But previously a record was supposed to be a journey, an experience from start to finish. And artists like yourself, I think some of them still do, but used to put a ton of energy and blood, sweat, and tears into organizing an album to take the listener through this series of ideas and this journey. And now we just kind of consider it every album is just kind of a collection of disparate works put together.
Well, one thing I really love about this is literally the soundtrack to a pandemic. This is what I did with my 3 months of time when I couldn't go play music because I was, what would you call that?
Quarantined, lockdown, taken hostage.
What's the word that makes you feel useless?
Obsolete.
Obsolete.
I mean that's
impotent.
One. No, what's the word that they use? Like you're not. If you don't have this kind of job, you are what?
Oh,
like
it was the essential
useless.
Workers.
Essential.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
I'm non-essential.
Yeah.
I'm a non-essential. So I just put all my energy into this vision that like came to me, and it was done by 2021. Even you guys had recorded the intro, the track 4 on here was recorded during 2021, I believe, early 2021. And we just finished a bunch of it up over the last, what was it, January or December? I can't remember. December,
January.
I think it was.
No, January, because
That
you
was
here, weren't you? Or did we already finish
that's
that? Actually, we might have done the recordings already. But yeah, these are
Yeah, we did
recordings
the
were years apart. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's like basically I spent a year just going hard at it, and then it sat like with Gonz, you were just talking off the air about like your desktop being so cluttered. Well, this has been on my desktop, and I was so like alleviated just to be able to remove it all from my desktop. And so by the way, I sent out. I did want to press it when I took this thing on. I didn't consider time as a factor. I didn't really think about 33 tracks, and I initially wanted to do cassettes, but I did quickly realize that maybe there were 2 people that had a cassette player still. So I think CDs are still a thing, and I've sold a pretty good amount of them actually. Vinyl obviously is the leader at this point.
That's so interesting. So wait, before you move on, records are more prominent than cassettes or CDs?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That's wild.
They have been since.
I know there's been a resurgence, but I didn't know it was like the leading.
Well, I think it's been about 2011, 2010, somewhere in there. It really came back full throttle, and the whole record store day thing really ramped it up too.
Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
We've actually had record breaking record sales.
Wow.
We've broken history on record store days.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are in this, I think right now is a very interesting point, because you can say in the past 10 years, of course, the trend has been, starting with millennials and through Gen Z, to value the things of the past, value the analog, as the digital everything devalues as time goes on, because it's easily replicatable, it's everywhere, it's so saturating the digital world that we live in, that suddenly slowly and then all at once the sort of analog tactile formats and other things slowly grew in I wouldn't even just say popularity, but also importance. There's something important about having something physically. And now with Gen Z, as we see, has swung to the traditional values in a way that nobody alive can remember a generation moving to conservatism or traditionalism. Gen Z has really started this avalanche, and not just conservatism in values, not just traditionalism, in lifestyle, but along with that is this sort of valuing of the not, infinitely available. The system, the beast system, Babylon, was so excited for the digital era because you can endlessly produce, assets, objects, products without any analog representation. And so it's all profit, basically. It profits everything to sell a digital object. But there's something rebellious about the analog formats. And I think, as we're seeing in society, rebellion isn't, secularism or atheism anymore. The punk rock thing to do is to find Jesus, return to traditional cultural values. It's very interesting to see. I could have theorized about this, and indeed have theorized about a moment like this for a long time, but to actually be present in that shift is very interesting. So I'm not actually, shocked but not surprised, I guess that's what it is, to hear that about records. And I think it's sort of a mirror of some spiritual shifts that are going on.
Yeah, so what I did with the CDs, though, I only have 1,000 made. Like I said, they'll be in my hands in like 3 days, but I had to omit some tracks from the 33 because it was an hour and 33 minutes long. So
is that too long?
Yeah, you can only fit 80 minutes max, I believe. It was the max on a CD.
So the beautiful restrictions of ancient technology.
So I kind of took a little more off than I probably, I not should have, but I could have taken a little less. Yeah, I took a little more off because I realized, I just did what I wanted to do. So like what you're getting with the Bandcamp edition is like the director's cut. You can go download and stream that for free. It has, particularly, there are a few interludes that did not make the CD, because I sampled major label songs and artists like in the background, like in true hip hop form, So like there's a Tupac sample of "Keep Your Head Up" on "Money for Wars," so I didn't put that on the CD. I don't want to. I do covers, and you can pay for the mechanical royalties in advance. Like when you press something, it is nearly impossible to jump through red tape on clearing samples because you're dealing with so many parties and so many publishing companies. It's crazy.
So you're even making a statement against the system by using tracks in the not illegal way, but more to the spirit of sampling and covers and stuff like that, rather than the corporate structures that have the red tape around, your ability to use other people's songs to remix your own thing.
Yeah, it's like the CD got the red tape over it. You know what I mean? It didn't get through the powers that be. Fully. But there's an RX Bandit sample that I used. There is a Marley Marl sample with Chuck D, and I'm trying to remember the other one. Oh, I also sampled Leonard Ulrich from his second film, The Illusion of Money, on the Grace Commission, because I thought there was some really valid information that I think if most people, anyone who knows about the Federal Reserve especially, and then listens to that, it's eye-opening, especially if you might lean conservative. You might go, whoa, Reagan, what's up, man? But anyway, that's not on the CD. I kind of left people where I felt like I was sampling their work too much. You know what I mean? I try to keep, most of my samples are interview based, right? It's just like them talking. So I didn't feel like that was as much of a problem or anything. But if it was like from a direct piece of art, like a movie or an album, like I didn't want to get in trouble for that. So Bandcamp's the only place you can get all of those in full. So the CD has 27 tracks on it. It has joined the 27 Club.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you put a lot of thought and specifics into this, man. It's very interesting. And again, I could see I could see, I only say this because I have experienced it. And especially when we have such a wonderful audience filled with very faithful believers and those who have their eyes open to the secret things going on around them, the symbolism, the occultism built into the very system, the law, the red tape, things like this. I'm expecting, I'll say this, someone to take one look at the list of tracks, expecting someone to take one look at the cover, perhaps even when they first hear Gonz and I introduce ourselves as these,
ridiculous
sort of ridiculous characters with obvious, not ties, but sort of allusions to occultists and Babylon and things like that, and instantly go, oh, well, this isn't kingdom work. This isn't, there's red stuff all over this, which is an interesting, reflection of the idea of red tape in itself, which is there's kind of this, I don't know, this bureaucratic aspect that we can hold ourselves to without actually digging in, hearing the message, seeing what's being presented, because what you're presenting, what you're formulating here, all the way down to the number of tracks, all the way down to the the length of the album, all the way down to, I mean, every little detail of it is, I don't even know if satire is the word, but it's taking a sort of it's taking a route of stealing the power from these types of things by revealing the secrets behind it, by taking down the illusion of what we see all the time, which is symbolism, which is numerology, which is ritual, occult interventions in all of our, especially entertainment industry, and kind of revealing them for what they are, which is a sort of inherent systemic rebellion against God and God's natural order and things like this, which is so rampant in everything today, all the way down to like the computer chips that are playing this audio in your phone. It's this dominion that man has taken over reality, over creation, that's been so twisted by, well, the devil. So can you dig a little bit more into that? I mean, what are some ways that this project is, you're hoping to either reveal or, break down or something like that? Like, especially with your experience in the music industry. I mean, you're a full-time working musician. You've got friends in all sorts of places. You have been doing this for a very long time. So maybe some insight into that would help people.
Yeah, as far as like the audience, I really didn't put much thought into like how would you even market something like this? You know what I mean? Like, this doesn't make sense for the world, I feel like, most of them. But at the same time, does it? I don't know, because, for instance, we're at such a point where it's like we're in conspiratainment land. It's everything's become mainstream at this point.
Right.
And so, is there room for it? Maybe this is one of those things that people will pass on. It's like under the radar, kind of like, hey, dude, check this little mixtape out that just came out. You can't get it on Spotify. It's just right here. You know what I mean? Kind of deal.
Right.
But what I will say, with what you were talking about and elaborating just a little bit more on something that was, so there's a parental advisory logo on here. And,
I was going to ask, yeah.
Yeah, so this is not probably for the kids. Not certainly not all of it. There is unless you, depending upon the age of your kids and what your morals and how you feel about certain language barriers. I don't think there's anything being said on here that is like horrible or inflammatory or anything. But most of the language comes from different people speaking, very casually, right?
You're talking about the samples and stuff like that.
Yeah, but there are some lyrics where I used a few expletives here and there.
Right.
Like
Okay.
there just are. And there's a
Yeah.
and most notably, and I'll point it out, there's a song on here called "Lift a Mofo Up," and it's like a new metal song almost. Uh, and that song is actually about a time in my life, believe it or not, when I was on the verge of wanting to end my life. And I came out the other side, and I came with a I guess the only way that I could say this is if I said to you, lift a brother up, or you know what I mean? Like that doesn't invoke the feeling in me to lift a brother up. Like if you say lift a mofo up and really say the word, then that makes me take that very seriously as somebody who has gone through that process. And it's like I want to be the person that is like the difference in somebody's life who is about to, like, how do I know what they're going through? They're sitting
Right.
next to me on the bench. You know what I mean?
Right.
I've been through a lot of things in my life. We've all been through things, but that was the point of that song. I want to just explain that because you'll notice if you listen to track 6 that I didn't hold back on language on that one.
So
So
it reflects the true nature of what you're talking about. I think that's fine.
it's very violent. It's a very
Yeah.
inner, visceral like thing that's coming out of me, right?
Yeah.
The experiential.
And I think we have all had our own experiences with that, with being in that place. And one thing that's true, especially for those who, maybe are in church culture or are surrounded by believers and things like that. It's one of the whoopsie daisies that I know was made in certain times of my life where when you're really in that place and when you're really, you are in a dark night of the soul, you're in a struggle that, any veneer of politeness really has no value. It has no, you've never polited somebody out of preserving their own life. It is this very dark place. And one thing that could be said about strong language, of course, there's all sorts of conversations to be had about it, is that it breaks through insincerity. It breaks through, we've all had the just think happy thoughts. Oh, just focus on the good. And, not to blame anybody who's come at a problem like that with those sentiments, but for those who are in it, that is sort of the last thing you are even capable of. And I know for sure in various experiences in my life on both sides of that situation, that getting as real as possible, there's something about breaking sort of the...
patterns.
Not quite illusion. Yeah, patterns. Yeah, maybe that's it. Breaking the patterns of politeness and sort of decency.
Absolutely.
Your day-to-day kind of interactions with people in the world and
It
stuff.
has a very powerful effect. So I totally see that.
It's almost like this, and I'll compare it, like Gonz can relate to this, I'm sure. Remember in swimming and you'd be in a relay or something, and this is the only event in swimming that we have other people that we're accountable to, right? Like it's like, like this is everything. And I'll just share this little story. Like I remember being at sectionals, I think it was my junior year of high school, and one of the guys is like, Swanson, like, how do we get you to go faster? and I was going pretty damn fast, but like, and I had this thing like I was kind of a chubby little kid, so I was like, call me a fat, like that's what I said, like call me that, and
make you angry, basically make you angry.
Yes, and it worked. Did I swim? We broke the record. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I don't even want to call it tough love, but there is like it lights up, it ignites something in you.
Yeah.
Like
there's an activation.
And to me, again, going back to the full message of this thing, like hip hop had a strong voice for a while. Now it's the voice of the corporate. Now we're like desensitized. Now we are getting to a point where we're going to be sanitized eventually too. And so I think this is reaching into all those human parts of us, and it's pulling that out. And when I say that to myself, when I say the actual lyrics to that song in my head, that makes me want to go talk to somebody and show some sort of like actual love and be a beneficial presence to them, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It does it for me. It may not do it for everybody, but sometimes that's like a tough love thing, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and I've spent some time in sort of pastoral roles over many years. And I'll tell you what, when somebody was really having one of those, I mean, life shattering moments in one of those life shattering places where, you know, everything is sort of stripped away and you look into your future and you really, all you see is a big black hole, you know, there's nothing there. There is something powerful about dropping a lot of the rules, the social rules, and really standing on the edge of that with them, and saying, you know, just being there in the horror of, you know, this is as close as like real life horror that a lot of people find themselves in situations that I've never been in. And there's even as someone in a pastoral role, and they are coming to me as their person for this sort of thing. As any, you know, good pastor will tell you, there's really no training that you can take that will teach you what God can teach you in those moments. That really is outside of the sort of expected norms and how to interact with somebody like that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I will say this also, track 6 follows the military recruitment ad. So it's like how many vets come back and kill themselves. You know what I mean? So this is very carefully planted in the mixture of things. Also, what you said about your experience, you know, Basil, especially as somebody who came up in the church. I don't know how your parents were with art, but like I was not allowed to have certain types of music.
Yeah, right.
So like I kind of chased after it, and I think about that. Like I often think about, I don't know if you ever thought about this, but remember Walmart when they used to have edited versions of everything? Like all the music had like the clean version of
the radio edit. Yeah.
Or like that version of a hip hop album or something. But I always find it weird that like they didn't do it with movies. Like why wouldn't you edit the movie like it is on TV? You know, like
well, they had
it
TV.
Never made sense
they
to
had
me.
TV for that at the time.
That's true.
You know, things have changed.
True, I guess.
But yeah, you know, it's interesting because every genre of music or film, really, I mean, whether you like it or not, is a reflection of some kind of human experience. So, you know, I think that's a good conversation with censorship. It's like, how much do you censor your kids? How much do you show them? How much do you expose them to early on or whatever? And I think there's a balance. There's a tightrope you have to walk where it's like you don't want them completely shut off to where, you know, they're so curious by the time they have the option to. It's like, oh, I got to check it out. But you also don't want to have them, you know, fall completely into it at a young age. So I could see both sides of it. But this is a conversation that I've actually wanted to have more with Basil, because I know you grew up so different from me anyway. Like I didn't grow up in the church, so I was just exposed to all the stuff. You know, it's just like whatever. Hey, there you go. Terminator 2, I think Terminator 1. VHS, well, like my dad's friend gave it to my dad, and then I watched it. I was probably like 8 or 9, probably a little too young for Terminator, you know.
Right.
And you know, all the TV shows, all the music. I remember borrowing the Green Day album Dookie from a friend. I think I was like 10, maybe 10 or 11, and the parent went up to my dad and was like, "Hey, there's some language, there's, you know, some topics in here. Is it okay?" And I always thought that was weird. I'm like, hey, that's kind of strange. But that dad was being very cordial. Like he was actually showing a little respect for, you know, just the content within the music. You know, we're getting exposed to it at such a young age. And I didn't even know what it was about till much later, which is part of the fun ignorance of being bilingual too. You kind of go through stuff and it's like, oh, I have no idea. Yeah. And then you come to find out later, like, oh, whoa, I was like repeating that and stuff. So yeah, I think this is part of the conversation that could be sparked with something like this, because we have this corporate version of Christian music right now. It's an industry that's grown, obviously, in the last, 15, 20 years. I think the music's gotten a little better, too. At least the musicianship has gotten better.
Better than it was,
yeah. It certainly has always kind of been the forefront of cringe, as I understand it. I mean, it was for me even just looking or seeing, Christian music when I was growing up. It just didn't even hit my radar. But after becoming saved, it was really hard for me the first couple of years, seeing the style of music and just the culture of worship and everything, coming from a background of secular music. But now it's become now I enjoy it much more, and I enjoy playing it and stuff like that. Although I understand sort of the bigger beasts of the corporate system, which is also there and cashing in quite heavily, I would say, at this point. What are your thoughts there? I mean, this obviously does not fit in like your normal worship album as a satirical piece, but can it be presented to believers in a way where it's like, here's something that it might break you a little bit, and it might be outside your comfort zone, but it's done by some brothers in Christ, and they're trying to deliver a message.
Yeah, I think especially if you watch Netflix or any sort of shows on Netflix, it seems like so many of them
they're already getting exposed to everything.
Probably worse than this in a lot of ways, to be honest, with what you're feeding yourself. So I would start there. If you're somebody who doesn't watch TV at all and doesn't watch Netflix at all, you might be in for a real shocker. But to hit on what you said about language and stuff and kids, right? Like, I think it's our job as parents, especially, and I'm not recommending anybody show this to their kids, but my kids, I've always explained to them that these expletives, these swears, the F word, the SH word, whatever words you can think of that would be not socially acceptable in certain, situations. Mm-hmm. I always told them that those aren't bad words. They're words that trigger people because they're kind of vulgar. But I said, it's not the word that people are really getting mad at. It's how you use that word, especially. Mm-hmm. And if I said you're an effing idiot, like what's the problem? It's not the effing. It's I'm calling you an idiot.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's not kind. I'm demeaning you. So I've always tried to educate them on that. And I've always also said, like, and if all you're saying is these kinds of expletives all the time, then you're really not going to come off very smart. So I think it's a matter of just educating children. I think they're smart enough to figure it out. They're like, yeah, these people do sound kind of dumb. Like, that's all they say is this. And listen to this mumble rap, Like, it's just, get out of here,
It is an interesting thing for people of faith to navigate too, because as we know, as it has become very clear now, controlling language is how you control reality. Mm-hmm. From start to finish. I mean, I could go through the whole process, but I think people kind of get that now. It's not even just controlling behavior, although controlling language does control behavior. Controlling language controls the thoughts that people have, which in essence controls their reality, which is why you have the establishment-based system focusing so much in the past 10 years on language, changing language, making new words bad and, previously bad words good. And, in a sense, now I'm not necessarily a supporter of this, but one good example of someone else who is sort of revealing this to people is Kanye West with his recent, language he used in his songs. And not only is are the songs, totally inappropriate for public consumption. They're inappropriate for private consumption. But as he, responds to this, as the story continues, as people talk about it, as his songs get taken down from every platform, the control mechanism is obviously clamping down, the same control mechanism that you satirize in the Red Tape album. As it locks down to control language at its very sort of basic, simplest forms. The simplest forms of controlling language is not allowing people to say a word. And not just like making it a bad word or something, I'm not trying to give
we know
every...
what you're saying, Basil.
Not trying to give every inappropriate word a pass, but it is a reflection of, controlling language being honestly the basic unit of controlling people.
Yeah.
I mean, in a sense, you atomize what controlling people looks like. You can go all the way to MK Ultra and, go as far in that direction with EMF waves and whatever. But the very basic unit, the atom of controlling people, is controlling the language that comes out of their mouth and controlling what goes in their mouth, which is why biblically, that is laid out, so biblically in the New Testament. Jesus comes out and he says, it's not what goes in to the heart that makes it foul. It's what comes out of a man that makes him foul. And, so that's a sort of reflection of this spiritual truth. As we know, the beast system takes and twists and counterfeits God's natural law and the spiritual realities and uses those to control population, control people, and lead them to where it wants. That is not for their good or God's good, but for their own good. And so, when it comes to language, restricting language, like you said, talking to your kids, having a much deeper conversation, an idea level conversation. I know that I could have benefited from that earlier on. Now, my parents, of course, have done a lot of maturing and have, over the years, and thank God pretty quickly, found themselves thinking deeper and broader about their parenting style. But there was certainly a time when, the answer was just simply no when it came to certain music, certain entertainment. And depending on age and relationship with your parents, totally support parents just saying no, because there is a time and place for everything, kids. So don't get me wrong. But I think that right now, especially with what we see with Kanye West, not just the words of his songs, but the message of his whole weird crusade right now, I think the timing is pretty not coincidental. I think the timing is very much on purpose on God's part, because I think there is a message trying to break through with Kanye, and it's not about the precise words he's saying, etc. And it's not even about the sort of second layer deep, maybe the literal meanings of his songs, but there is a deep fundamental spiritual conflict going on that I think this Red Tape album plays its own part in the spiritual war, in revealing that to different parts of society. That was a bit of a rant, but hopefully that would inspire something in you, Sam. No, I mean, it's interesting because Kanye in particular, though, is somebody who, when I was recording this, he had made Jesus his king. So I was like, and the other thing that happened at that same time was the Chappelle had made a pretty groundbreaking comeback on stand-up. And so like you had him and Kanye just spitting all these truths that were like not politically, correct at all. And so that was kind of where I was at the time, where I was like, oh, this is really interesting, and I wanted to kind of document some of that. So, but now it's just, wow. Like, it's just, I wouldn't have expected Kanye to be where he's at right now. Like, no. When I made this, which I don't have a problem. It doesn't matter to me because, like I said, I've sampled people on here that are probably worse off, like Farrakhan, talking about things. By the way, I have to talk about that for a second. So amidst the first month of that lockdown, I started getting, I was recording everything here, and you know how YouTube will sort of put you in some sort of algorithm, like if you like this, you might like this, blah, blah, blah. Well, I just started getting all these Farrakhan videos out of nowhere. and I was just like, yo, I know he's considered an anti-Semitic dude, right? And so I've never, ever tried to listen to one of his interviews because of
like the kind of liberal arts background that I have, in this Chicago scene and all that kind of stuff. So I've just never really paid attention to him. But that got me down I was like, I need to like listen to him. And I found so many of the things that he said to be true, but of course there are things that he said that probably he shouldn't have said as well. However, you throw the baby out with the bathwater and you start to realize, like, this dude's on Donahue talking about things that, like, I don't know, like, no wonder they didn't want him, like, anywhere. No wonder they silenced him, like, he's pointing out the insurance companies that paid for slavery, like, just all kinds of stuff, like, if you want to follow the money, like, and obviously he has a bent. He's got his own religious kind of cult thing going on with that Nation of Islam, which isn't even acknowledged by Islam, but, however, I found a lot of what he said to be true, and it's like, well, this is valid, and it's again the voice of the voiceless. He only has he's definitely impactful in the hip hop community and in the Black community, and but like the world will not recognize him, And it's like, well, maybe we need to let some of these people speak some of the things that are true. I don't know, give him a little spotlight here. I mean, so. Yeah, but what I was going to say about that was, interestingly enough, as soon as I was coming into all those algorithms, I probably spent like 2 weeks just watching nonstop videos and finding clips and stuff. And guess what happened? George Floyd. I felt like I was being programmed by the algorithms to accept the next big blackout in the media and all the stuff that came along with Black Lives Matter and stuff. So that's an interesting side note to this whole experience of recording this during the pandemic.
You might have identified the mechanism that really took a whole bunch of people by storm.
Because we were all at home, right?
Yeah.
Like we all had all of our media surveillancing us and calculating all of our reactions to everything on a daily basis, hourly, minute basis, It's crazy. I wonder what that scientific research looks like.
Yeah, well, now, knowing what we know about AI, I mean, the consumer access to AI came out in 2020, what, 3?
Yeah,
I think it was 2023 when ChatGPT first dropped. I mean, we kind of forget it now. We're kind of used to AI being, something we can regularly access, but it's been less than 2 years since AI has been commercially available, which means that it's been available to governments and corporations and the real control mechanisms for years. I mean, the easy estimate is 10 years. Now you think of locking everybody in their homes, and feeding all of the digital data, which exploded. It was life. There was no life outside of digital worlds, for at least that period of time, running the AI. And we know for a fact, we were reporting in 2012 about the digital world simulation, where they were putting together digital simulations of the entire world, including each human being. And now we lock everybody in their houses. They get to only access the outside world through the internet, and you have this new tool, AI, which nobody knows about yet, but surely it's being deployed. I mean, you talk about a 10-year-old report on the digital world simulation from a couple of weirdos on a podcast back when nobody knew what a podcast was. I mean, that... You can throw out any theory you want about what the purpose of COVID and the lockdown was, and surely there's lots of theories about what that moment and that operation was being used for. At the very least, you can guarantee that it was this new mass-scale world simulation powered by AI, and it just so happened that when you run experiments like that, you want to throw some variables in there, using your
This is getting
control.
boring. Unleash the pandemic. Let's see what they do.
A few months of, okay, we've got the data for a few months being locked in home. Let's
see how it compares to the simulation.
Let's get 6 months of the data of everybody taking to the streets and burning everything down. That'll be helpful data for the future.
Yeah, that makes help geez,
that does
helps.
make help.
It does make help sense. Everything when it comes to why they had bricks on the side of the road, everything seems staged. There were provocateurs, like obvious provocateurs. In hindsight, it was like it's not even a question whether these people were plants in there trying to stir things up. So it helps it make it all good sense.
Yep, Jan 6, everything too.
Yep.
You know, this kind of hits a bunch of things. You're just making my gears turn. But one, you said the AI, this brand new thing, that means they had it before us, and that's a big disconnect with people. And and especially using, just with you guys as of recent for that game show on here, using the ChatGPT really made me go, how long has this been out, and how many Netflix shows have just been written through ChatGPT?
Yeah.
How much content on the internet itself is just
I can tell you that
AI.
what I did is like old school. Like I started on a 4-track and I developed this craft and this skill, but like now you can just do that. It's crazy that you can do that.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it makes me wonder. And Billy Corgan recently said something on a podcast. He was talking about how in the future he thinks that you're going to have art that comes out where it's going to have a label on it. Here's your red tape or your whatever tape, but it's going to say not made with AI, like made by humans, and I think that's going to be interesting too as we go into this brave new world. Like, how does that work? Who's going to listen to real art? Is it going to be something that people want to listen to? Because everything's auto-tuned and so like the algorithms have flattened everything, and
compression.
Right.
Compression has become this. When I first started learning about digital workstations and learning about compression and how it works and everything else, I never thought that it would be such a cultural, like everybody knows about compression with music now. So everything sounds squashed now. No dynamic, highs and lows, all scrunched into this small little band. And it's it's like a genre. You can't have music out there, especially, EDM or whatever, without it really compressed. So it's so interesting.
Which is a metaphor or an allusion to everything. I mean, our politics is
socialism.
Down. There's no dynamics. Our emotional range. That was one thing recently that people are catching on to is, you think about mass mind control, you think about controlling social engineering, you think about these things, and we like to think about mind control as controlling thoughts, maybe controlling thoughts and maybe controlling actions. But the real mind control, the real effective one, the one that they know that they can do and really gets the results that they want, is the emotional mind control. Because when you get past details, when you get past facts, when you get past, the little things that people can kind of work through and find logic around, there's no logic around emotion. So when you talk about, the algorithms building your experience online or controlling the sentiment, sentiment is the biggest control factor. We know this from intelligence agencies and etc. It's really the emotional control. It was again being brought up in 2012. Facebook ran an experiment without telling anybody. They ran it on almost 1 million people. Half of them, they took away all positive news out of their timeline. The other one, they took out all negative news out of their timeline. And not only could they find a difference in their emotional well-being of the people, going in the exact direction you'd expect, but then after the emotional manipulation came the behavioral change. Not just, they're only seeing negativity, they then only post negativity. They only seek out negativity. It's like they forgot positivity was even a thing. And once you get somebody into that state, they're the easiest thing in the world to control. So, when we say do your best to stay away from the mind control, it doesn't mean, it doesn't necessarily mean seek out true facts or whatever, because they can print something that's factually true, but also false,
right.
But it's about taking captive your heart, taking captive of the things that you are, and this, look, it sounds fancy and religious, but really all I'm saying is, look, the more time you spend on your timeline, the more you are submitting your emotions to the control mechanism. They'll make you feel bad. They'll make you feel good when they want you to feel good. They'll make you feel bad. Usually it's just they'll make you feel bad on purpose, because that's what works into it. And music, of course, has always been a huge mechanism for that. Do you have thoughts on sort of social engineering or control in music?
Well, sure, but also just you recently had Mike Davis on a few episodes ago, and I took Mike's emotional success coaching certification class. So that's what I'm doing now with my sister. We have a website called embracismcoaching.com. And I'm going to paraphrase, but Mike said something in our course, and I have it written down in my notes somewhere, but it was something like you can change somebody's beliefs quicker through feeling than you can through logic.
Right.
So that is, yes, you were right. Anything that you talk about mind control in any shape or form. So music is that. Music is this feel. It's all feeling. It's melody.
It bypasses logic.
You take it in, yes. And I mean, while I would say the people that make music, especially, you are engaging both sides of the brain when you're making music a lot of the time, but especially that right brain is just, wide open. So yeah, that leads to. Yeah, I have all kinds of questions about, because I'm still pondering what I'm going to do with the green tape. So I have a lot of ideas right now in my head. I even think about the whole frequency of sound. Like the 4-3-2 argument, different frequencies, and that's something that I want to kind of explore in the future. Also, like, do these things? Does this matter? How come, like, when I go in my garage and I take my son plays guitar now, by the way, which is awesome. He turns 13 tomorrow. What's up?
Wow.
By the way, he has a little bonus track on the instructions at the end. I have an old recording of him like banging on my mom's piano when I used to manage a campground when I was doing God's Property Radio. And he said, I love Jesus is what he said on the piano.
Nice.
Like, so that ends the red tape at the end. But anyway, he's playing, like, I came home 2 days ago from a gig. He was playing Miserlou by Dick Dale.
Wow.
Like, get out of here. Like, he's better than I am. Like, he's figuring out things that I know. He's like more a Gonz guitarist here, like lead guitar. But anyway, why is it when I picked up his guitar the other day and I moved it to, I don't know what fret it was, maybe the 11th fret, 9th fret, I don't know what it was. All of a sudden, my drum set, the springs start rattling at that one fret.
Yep.
So let's think about that. Like, what the power of, let's go back to the creator, like using sound. Hey, I remember some guys that had this podcast in like 2012 that did this episode on sound and how God spoke the world into existence. And yeah, so like it's a very powerful gift to use for either good or evil, right?
Right.
And I think that music as a whole, I don't think there's such thing as like maybe notes being evil or anything like that. But I think that, yes, like if we understand certain principles and we're implanting, like, look at, like you guys mentioned earlier, what was it, the CIA, right? Like, and the rap industry, and didn't Ice Cube recently come out talking about
something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have like the whole Laurel Canyon and Jerry Garcia and Jim Morrison and the CIA being involved with the disbursement of acid and LSD,
even Charles Manson and the Monkees. Like, it's all wrapped up.
Yeah, so like obviously we can see there you can use any good thing, like it's not a bad thing, music in itself, but it's like, how is it being used and how are you aiming it? And I'm at the point where I'm questioning everything I do in the future if I'm gonna just switch it to analog at some point. I don't know.
Because of the frequency
like
shenanigans.
For instance, like this is a I don't want to go too far off topic, but Basil, because you were doing Basil's Bunker last summer, you had a guest call in, and if he's listening right now, shout outs, let's talk, because I want to hear more about what he had to say. But he recommended. One second, that thing's gonna fall.
Whee!
We all took a little plummet. All right. He recommended this book, which I bought.
Yes.
The Invisible Rainbow.
I believe his name was Liberty Before Authority. He's reached out a couple times. So yeah, reach out again. I'll put you in contact with
dude.
Sam.
Yeah, I would love to talk to him more. Anyway, so he just he started talking at the end of the spiel. He started talking about linen and how linen vibrates at an exponentially higher frequency than any material. Like bamboo and cotton in like at 100, they're at like 100 is it kilohertz, I think it's measured in. So our bodies, let's say we're at 100, and the bamboo and the cotton, if they're organic, they essentially vibrate at the same as a human body. But a dead body vibrates at like 15. Even a dead body still vibrates at some sort of electrical frequency, the way God made us. So like the synthetics, like polyester and things like this, vibrate more down at a lower frequency.
Yeah.
Which it says something like about your health, maybe, right? Like if we are electric light beings, not to sound like a new ager, but
At the mechanical level, that's kind of what we are.
Check this out. This stuff right here, I bought linen sheets and linen pillowcases. It cost me a little over $300. They vibrate between 5,000 and 8,000 kilohertz. So I'm spending 8 hours a night, like recharging my body.
Have you noticed a difference in your health or your mind or anything?
I go right to sleep as soon as I put them on. As soon as I get in this bed, I'm out. I used to lay awake a lot longer.
Yeah.
And so I think my circadian rhythm's really in check. I get up at the same time pretty much every day, depending upon when I hit the bed. But I just figured I'd try it, and it seems to be helping. At least if nothing else, it's getting me up to go to the gym every day.
Well, that's something.
So, but I find that interesting. And so tying that all together, like if the physiology of us, right, the spirituality, all of it is combined. And so like music has been used in very sinister ways on people. I'll quote, what was it, like the guy Homath, as you and I have discussed before. He has some pretty great videos out as of recent, but he was talking about how on one of his live streams, how he remembers being younger and watching certain kids like gravitate toward like gangster rap, and they were obviously not living in the ghetto, but it made them it allowed them to live out this fantasy almost, like of this is. Yeah. Yes, and that's what a lot of this stuff does. It is magic in a way, and some of it is just like some of it leads you to right to prison, right?
Right.
I mean, it's your choice. At the end of the day, everyone has a choice. But what I'm saying is, like subconsciously, like we are susceptible to a lot. And,
we also have a choice in what we let influence us. I mean, that's again back to what Jesus was saying. And it's one of those things. It's really hard as a human to see, our relationship with time is very limited. It's always now. Doesn't matter when. It's always now, and it's hard for us to, all the way down from looking into the future. How much will eating one salad help us? How much will owning one pair of linen pants? Those things are very difficult to see. Sure. And, before we started the show, you were sharing with me that you've been getting in the gym, bro, been hitting the weights, talking about, you said you're about 4 weeks in, if you don't mind me revealing our early thing. And I love sharing this because I know what it's like to like kind of start get going. And for anybody listening out there, I am absolutely not an expert in fitness or working out or whatever.
Canary Cry Fitness. Let's go. Canary Cry Gym.
Canary Swole Radio.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I am absolutely not educated. I have no credentials except for it's now been going on 5 years now when I really started taking, at least working out and exercising regularly as a, serious thing, long-term thing. And since then, I've lost like 60 pounds, and, you know, I'm older. I'm the oldest I've ever been, and I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. And for me, I think, well, what have I learned here? And it's not that I learned the right way to work out. It's not that I learned how to be a nutrition influencer or something like that. It's that I learned, it's changed my relationship with time. And it's changed my relationship with, you know, I am stuck right now. I'll always be right now. But it's the continuous choices I make right now that make the biggest difference over longer periods of time. And, you know, you can't even think about that. I never was going to think 4 years from now, I'm going to be in great shape and I'm going to be super stoked and I'm going to be telling it. You just can't think about it because all we have is right now. And the same, just to bring this back around, the same goes for the things we let influence us in all sorts of ways, but especially music, especially entertainment, stuff like that. You might think
it's all part of your diet. It's all part of your diet.
One listening to one Kanye song, that can't be a problem. It'll be fine. And, you know, addicts actually learn this the hard way because an addict doesn't set out to be an addict. An addict starts with trying a drug or something once with their buddies. And then a couple days go by and they try it again. And then it becomes every day. And then it becomes every hour. And it's just this constant choice here and now. Whereas, yeah, if somebody tries a drug once in their life, they're probably not going to die. They're probably not going to lose their family. But when you try that drug once, every opportunity you get, that once turns into not just a habit, but it eventually turns into your character. It turns into who you are.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to listening to music, when it comes to engaging in the entertainment industry, again, it's kind of the same thing. We're stuck in the now. Watching one TV show, listening to one song might not be a big deal, but now it's now again. What are you going to choose? Oh, now it's a new now. What are you going to choose now? And that's what really adds up to a lifetime. And it's hard to see until only in hindsight can you see the truth about what your collection of nows has added up to.
Collection of nows. I like that.
Life is just a collection of nows. And that's why, you know, the control mechanisms, the control establishments, they want to keep you from thinking ahead, thinking backward. It's so easy to control somebody in now, especially if you've got them emotive, if you've got their emotions under control. Somebody who's fearful or scared or sad, that's the easiest person in the world to control. So, you know, you have an establishment who has direct access to your every now that you have. They're in your phone. They're in your ears. Every now in your life, they can send a little message, send a little notification, get you on their phone, get you on your phone whenever they want. And they take advantage of that. That's what they do. They want to grab as many nows that you have to give them. And then that's when they have control. And it just keeps going. So that's why
they're living off your now. They're living off your now.
Yeah, and they're killing you off your now too. That's the trippy part, man. Time is an illusion. The now is now, and it's never not now. And you know that if it's right now, you know that they are coming for you. You know they're coming for you, and they want to make you sad.
Yeah,
it's true. It's true. You know, Sam, you talked a little bit about just sound vibrations, and I know it's a topic I think that as we've become more educated on it from just a mechanical standpoint, that it's been hard for Christians to talk about because they get immediately accused of being new age, right? But I think I like the word mechanics because it gets at the heart of separating the spiritual from the physical in conceptualizing what's going on. But I did have a Beyond the Verse recently that talked about cymatics, which is basically you get vibrations, sounds, and you get sand or water, and it with each note or each sound, the patterns in the water changes, right? Which is just a very obvious example of how vibrations have a natural visual component to it. You'd mentioned earlier about the guitar, your son's guitar, hitting in a certain way makes the snare rattle. I've noticed that too. There's certain frequencies, there's certain notes, there's certain things where it moves differently. It moves the air particles differently around you.
It messes with matter.
Yes,
like
it's kind of trippy. It is trippy. Yeah, the sound is very psychedelic in general, but.
I didn't know the term cymatics. That's
cymatics.
Interesting. I've watched so many videos on that, like the water where it's almost
thing.
like a snowflake or something, or like that's really interesting stuff.
You can get
and then how much of us is water, right? Like how
So we're yes, very much so. So there's one example where there's like a hose and it's shooting water out like in a stream, and then it's connected to a speaker. It looks like a subwoofer. I think so, because it's a low end. And every time that low end hits, the stream turns into a very elaborate spiral, just in midair. And it's just from the speakers, from the sound. So there's an obvious effect. And I also pointed out in the video an example with music specifically. I've been kind of, I don't know, my brain's been going down this rabbit trail a lot recently. But Sam, in 1 Samuel 16, in the Bible, in the Old Testament, there's a moment where King Saul is tormented. It says here in verse 14, "Now the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a spirit of distress from the Lord began to torment him. Saul's servant said to him, 'Surely a spirit of distress from God is tormenting you. Let our Lord command your servants here to seek out someone who can skillfully play the harp. Whenever the spirit of distress from God is upon you, he is to play it and you will be well.'" And then later it shows David in the presence of Saul playing skillfully. And it says in verse 23, "And whenever the spirit from God came upon Saul, David would pick up his harp and play. Then Saul would find relief and feel better, and the spirit of distress would depart from him." So you can call them demons. They were spirits. I mean, they're all under the sovereignty of God in a sense. But these negative spirits that can torment you, they can leave with music. And I think this is, that there's an unseen realm, spiritual, intangible side to this, of course. But then with music, I think when we tap into our emotions and everything else, we can actually feel this. That's the thing with music. It's almost an amplifier of us, our psyche, our emotions, everything else. And so to craft something, to build something that is meant to glorify God ultimately, and do so in a way where, like you've done it through art and with the red tape, I think it's really fascinating because, the same way that Luciferians and, the evil demonic spirits, the principalities and powers have used a veneer of the lamb to actually deliver a wolf in the sense of culture and music and everything else, you're kind of doing the opposite, right? It kind of you look at it and you're like, oh, what satanic album is this or whatever, but it's actually pointing to God. So talk a little bit about how, like, the elements of actually pointing to God in this, because again, somebody who is not familiar with Canary Cry, not familiar with your work, if they come across this and they understand that maybe it's satire, but maybe not, to what effect, to what extent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had a friend actually reach out about that. Like, what are your beliefs? Like, because of that. I think from the get-go, like one, I think the first recorded voice on here is Marvin Gaye saying, music belongs to God. And then you hear all these people talking about God. You hear Prince talking about God, especially because he was in his Jehovah's Witness, era there. But I think that it's cool to hear somebody like D'Angelo talk about being influenced by the Spirit, being led by the Spirit, and letting Yahweh speak to him. Like, I think that captured it even better toward the end of Moondialing. But that's where I wanted to set the precedence, was at the beginning. Like, you are now dialing into the radio and you are flipping channels, and all you can get is artists talking about God.
Yeah.
That are secular artists. You know what I mean? In one way or the other. So I think that sets the precedence right there. However, then it goes into American Dream State. And I think we need to separate our faith from our patriotism, so to speak. Sometimes I'm not anti-American, so to speak, but I've been a recipient of what I would call the American dream. I used to have a salary job, a really great job, a really a beautiful wife, kids, everything, the whole shebang, and nobody was happy, you know.
Yeah.
And that all faded, you know. It's funny how you can think that you want those things, and I guess the eyes have to be on the prize, you know. And so with American Dream State, it juxtaposes Martin Luther King, who a lot of people attribute our, he had a dream, right? That's the big thing. He had a dream,
right?
You know, well, he did, but he's on record on here saying, essentially, when you get through a few more interludes with him on there, that Vietnam destroyed his dream. Like war destroyed it, So I don't think he would be proud of where we're at,
They just didn't tell us about the other part where he says his dream was ruined by the military industrial complex.
Yeah.
Forgot to tell us that part when we were kids.
Totally. And then I juxtapose, like, every time you hear MLK talk, it leaves off with George Carlin like finishing the rant in different on one of his own rants. And they kind of fit together nicely. Carlin obviously a little bit more crass than Mr. King, but so I mean, there's a lot of socio-political stuff throughout it, and I'm trying to. It kind of goes back to, like, again, like what I did with Escape Babylon, which was like the elephant drowning or the elephant burning and the donkey drowning, and to escape it. You know what I mean? There's this red tape around us that's trying to be extracted from us. So yeah, as you go through it, you're not going to get a lot of worshipy stuff.
Of course.
However, I think some of the tracks, like I definitely convey like the battle that's going on.
Yeah.
There are little verses like that I'll spit where you can hear some of that in there, where, because I didn't have anybody to rap on this, so I just went for it. And so all the raps are me. Love them or hate them. But I would say that some of the ones that you might really feel like, whoa, this is like very godly. I think track 23, I covered a Prince song called "And God Created Woman." I think that I covered a song by a very not well-known band from Cleveland, Tennessee called Key of David. That's track, it's called World That Was. It's at the end.
30.
Track 30. Yeah. That one, wow. I wish I wrote those lyrics. That's why I did that song, because it's so potent. It is amazing. And the instructions is so obviously a gospel song, but I don't think there's a ton of overtly like, hey, this is a worship song.
Yeah.
So this is more, it's like kind of going back to Basil, like you said, like, this is like an experience. It's a movie. It's like a true, like, from track 1 to track 33, this is like a message, and you can dissect each one. You can find the moments in it. You're like, whoa. And I don't know, as I go through it more and more, I'm like, wow, this connects to this, and I didn't even intend that.
That's the coolest part. That's the coolest part.
It's like
it's
so
praise
fun.
God moment, and you're like, wow, I didn't even see that, but that's in there. That's definitely there.
Yeah, but there's like, I mean, whether it's like going from where it starts at the American Dream State and We Had a Dream to military control to the Bank of America cult, like where then gets into house hunting. We're talking about finances now. We're talking about banks. Then we get into like things that kill us from food, like the GMO fresh advertisement. And we get into a song like Lethal Ingestion, which is a punk ska song about what they're putting in our air and our food. I mean, there's definitely, that one has definitely some, you'll get toward the end of it, some scriptural type stuff going on. And then you get halfway through and it kind of changes a little bit. It gets into like after the game show, it takes a turn toward like a basic concept, which I always loved. I think it was Natalina who got me into this guy, Francis Schaeffer, back in the day. And he said like the final apologetic is love, you know? And there's a song on here called Mountains, which is that's what it's about. But prior to that, there's an interlude, which is at the same BPMs, and it kind of has people talking. It's called Temperance. And Mike Davis talked about this on his episode a few episodes ago, about temperance, which is this ability to control our words, our actions, our thoughts, and our feelings, and have that kind of self-control and be able to balance our lives, right? Like walking in the spirit, so to speak. And so you get into that where I'm kind of integrating more emotional intelligence, which is what I'm doing now, right, with coaching. And then you get into the kind of back in a little bit more into other ways that we're being destroyed as people, right? Like what are the divorce rates now? It's insane. It's like I'm also somebody who participated in a divorce, right? And so that affected my life. So I sampled Dr. Joe Beam from Marriage Helper on a topic called limerence. It's a term that was coined back in the 70s by Dorothy Tenov. It's a fascinating little interlude there after the song Oxytocic, featuring the only other guest singer that's on here, my friend Alana from New York. And then you get into eugenicism and the world that was, and it kind of wraps it all up after archetypes and eugenicism, kind of pointing to we're all one race. We just have different degrees of melanin. Like the words, as you said before, Gonz, like words, we're being censored, you know? We use certain words and it's like, you can't talk now. Like I've been collaborating with somebody as of recent that I can't mention, but he's also playing drums in a hip hop group, and we're recording this cover right now. And in the song, because it's by a black artist, right? He uses the N-bomb, right? So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna say brother, like brother in it. And then he said to me last night, hey, he's like, I think you should change brother. My boys in my hip hop group, they said that as black dudes, like it's cringe to hear a white dude say brother. And I'm like, wow, like that's okay. That's okay, like fair. But at the same time, like see the complex nature of this. When we start censoring people, now we're forcing them to have to think to use other words. And that's not accepted. So now I have to use another word. Like it gets confusing. It's like, can't I just speak?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing. Again, there's a reason why even words that are not bad or not, of course, there's certainly words we don't want to say in private or public. But then the sort of impetus for control is so, I don't know, it saturates every sentence that even words that aren't considered bad for any identifiable reason get relegated depending on, your identity, the context in which they're being spoken, just sort of regular words. And to some degree, that is a bit just naturally how the humans work as a system, as individuals, and then also as groups and societies. It's sort of built into the system. But again, every control mechanism that's established by, the establishment is something that is inherently built in, but then it's just taken and mechanized and deployed in ways that, are not necessarily here to serve the creator or operate in the natural law of creation, things like that. And even like I mentioned, even words you would never even expect, it's that the labyrinthine, if that's the right word. And when you get a lot of people together, which now apparently in this globalized world and thanks to technology and the internet, something that would have been sort of a natural filter, like by the time you walked 1,000 miles to a new culture, you would have picked up the rules as you go. But now it's online, so you kind of have to live by the rules of every culture, even places you never have been or will be or whatever, just by the nature of, again, this sort of digitized version of reality, that suddenly you got to play by everybody's rules instead of your own society or your own group or whatever. And I'm not even necessarily saying that that is necessarily a work of the devil. It is just an outcropping of this really freaky, unusual version of reality that we have found ourselves in and having to navigate. I'm wondering if people were brave enough, if they're feeling ready, if they are excited to see what else God is doing in the world, in the sort of realm of art, and with this project that you've taken so painstaking steps to make. Oh, you know what? Real quick, put a pause on that real quick, because you mentioned as musicians, and they're kind of doing left and right brain at the same time. You know, when we experience and we listen to music, most people are engaging in sort of the creative, emotional side of things. That's one of the beautiful things about music and lots of entertainment. But a musician, they're always funny to hang out with. They're always funny to talk to, because they are the people who are also engaging a logical side. Not even when they're just creating, even when they are just taking in music. You know, it's one thing to listen to a song with a non-musician and go, wow, isn't that a great song? Man, doesn't that hit you right in the feels? Yeah. And then you listen to a song with a musician and they go, oh man, that time signature, and they get into like this hyper technical perceptions that they're getting of music real time. It is something that I find, as I take some tiny steps, and as time goes on and I don't engage with creating music as much as I used to, I've noticed it more and more, where a musician is engaging technically in even just consuming music in a way that other people aren't, and in fact can actually really annoy some people, I've discovered.
This is true.
And it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like a superpower or something, but there's a responsibility to that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if a lot of people who are just consumers of music really either realize that or think about that in the moment, where there's like a whole nother world of technical data and feeling going on right underneath the music. And it is in that sort of technical realm of music that a lot of the I don't know, either more glorious effects or more sinister effects can kind of take place. Just as out of curiosity, you both are active musicians. You know, when you're listening to music or even creating music, is that something that you find yourself engaged with, these sort of technical details?
You want to go?
I know that. Sure. Yeah. I mean, like I'm affected. One thing that I'm really affected by is hi-hat. Like when the drummer is playing certain hi-hat patterns and 16th notes and things like that. Like I kind of, it's just like this pleasure neural pathway. You know what I mean? It's like, ooh, yeah. It's like almost hypnotic for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. That's one of many, but that's just an example.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like when you listen to a podcast that has like comedians and stuff, and suddenly they're talking about a joke that their friend comedian made, and they're like breaking down almost in technical terms why it's such a good joke. And it's kind of, outside the realm of somebody who doesn't do it professionally. I can't necessarily say that I listen to podcasts and go, oh, that podcaster I see what you did there, podcast man. That's very podcasty of you, I see. I'm going to make judgment on your technical
I do that.
skills.
Does that make me a bad person? I'll listen to a podcast and be like, oh, that thing right there could have been a better thing right there, or whatever, whatever the thing is.
Yeah, I might actually be lying. It's very possible that I do that without really realizing it.
I think we all do to some extent.
And then, and it kind of connects with the sort of technical power of humor. The emotional power of humor as well, which is what is something that I'm very glad happened in this project, because in the end, it has its root in humor, satire in general. And who knows? I'm going to be interested to find out what level of sort of humorous I don't know, knowledge or experience people will need to appreciate the humor in the thing.
I'm thinking, and I'm not saying it's like this, but if you've ever seen the film Brazil, it's almost like more, I feel like that. I feel like it's sort of a satire, it's sort of comedic, but it's also kind of sad, and it's like, this is all messed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, see, that's powerful though. I mean, I don't think it's an accident that in this new world, in the rubble of the crumbling mainstream media, that they are pointing out comedians specifically with podcasts. As there was Tim Dillon, who's a comedian who has a podcast. He was recently brought on CNN for an interview, and in the CNN interview, the CNN reporter goes, don't you think that you podcasters are the new establishment? And he's like, who, what, a bunch of Theo Vaughn and Tim Dillon and Joe Rogan and a bunch of these comedian idiots. Yeah, you think they're the new you think they're better like at controlling people than the CIA and the FBI and the World Economic Forum and the government? No, they're not the new establishment, but it does reflect and I think recognize in a similar way that I think music has been identified here in this podcast and previously in human history. The emotional resonance and power of humor has its own, I mean, it's almost like a revolutionary tool. There's so few things that regular people have that can sort of, I don't know if fight back is the right word, but kind of operate in these same realms of establishment propaganda, narrative, stuff like that. And humor and music are two that can be deployed just by a person who is good at humor and music and really make a difference at helping people break out of those sort of emotional chains of the digital world. So I think combining humor and music has a good chance of having a real effect on people in that way.
I remember this quote. It was something like, the root of comedy is tragedy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of based in like at somebody's expense, right? We're laughing, right? But yeah, I think it's a great tool. I mean, how many stand-up comedians shaped the view of the hatred for George W. Bush during like the war on terror? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's a really great way to sway things. I'm not saying that it wasn't justified in a lot of ways, but something else I wanted to bring up, because I think we're getting closer to the close here.
Yeah, we'll start landing the plane.
I think back, and I know I've said this before, but Gonz and Leonard Ulrich to me are people that sort of laid the groundwork for Christian truther-esque, whatever you want to call it, documentaries. And one of the things that Leonard said at the beginning of his first film was, it still resonates with me all the time, is he said, make DVDs, make a copy, learn how to make a copy of this presentation while we still have a free internet. And I'm just going to go ahead and echo that right now. Feel free to go to Bandcamp and download this and keep it on your hard drive, so you have it. because I'm not putting this on Spotify. There's a few of the singles that are on Spotify that I put out over the years before I put out the entire presentation. But this is an exclusive here, or if you want the hard copy on CD, awesome. That's even better because that money goes to me. I actually get money for that, and somebody gets to walk away with a physical copy. But I would say, while we have a free internet and before Bandcamp takes down my stuff like they have with your content on YouTube and stuff like that,
Right.
Go for it. Go to slavettoservant.bandcamp.com.
And I will say, as a very exciting piece of news for our supporters, and this is great because it'll be supporting you as well, for the supply droppers, canarycrysupply.com, they'll be receiving a copy of this in the upcoming supply drop.
A hard
folks.
copy?
So a hard
Yes.
copy.
Big
A
deal.
hard copy. It's very
That's awesome.
exciting. So you'll be participating in exactly that. And the supply droppers, they're very aware of that concept and have received and are all engaged in archiving hard copies of all sorts of work, like Gonz's Age of Deceit series, as well as sort of archives of all of the podcasts we've ever made. And so you'll be receiving that. So if you're out there and you're like, yeah, actually, I'm on the hard copy revolution. Let's get the analog, real world value back into the world instead of just this invisible digital, version. Go join the supply drop, canarycrysupply.com.
You will own everything and be
will-
happier.
You will own everything and be happy.
I like
That's
that.
we got to remember that. Well, Sam, thank you so much, dude. Always a blast having you on the show. Always a blast having talking about weird stuff together. And if people were wanting to connect with you directly, or if there's any other directions you wanted to lead people, now would be a great time to do that.
Sure. One, go to slavettoservant.bandcamp.com and just download this and all of the Slave to Servant material if you want to just have the files. It's free there. My website is samswansonmusic.com. That is where you can there's a web store online if you click on store, and it has over 50 items in it of my discography. Like I said, this is like my 15th album, actually. It's kind of crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. There's old memorabilia. I actually have Leonard's second film in my store if you want to buy a copy of The Illusion of Money, since I did the score to it.
Fun.
It's at the bottom. But other than that, I would say if you need help, if you are a brother or sister and you're struggling emotionally to maybe meet some goals, you have some limiting beliefs, my sister and I have a website called embracismcoaching.com. And we would be happy if you would like to go ahead and fill out the discovery form on the front page. When you scroll down, we could go ahead and do a discovery session with you if you contact us through there for about a half hour to see if we could help you any further. So that is my new, I would say what I'm trying to really hone in now is to become like a pro coach. So.
Yeah, well, pro coaches are good. It's better than even just a single pro coach. And are you going on tour? Are you going to be around? Can people see you anywhere? Do you have a schedule?
Well, that's on the samswansonmusic.com. You have all my shows there. I haven't done any Slave to Servant performances, but I am doing one on a week from tomorrow, I think. I'm playing in Greensboro, and I'm doing just a half hour. I'm going to do 2 of the songs off the Red Tape Live, along with some of the other material from a couple other releases. I'm opening for another artist who is a worship leader, actually, that I met around here. I just moved to North Carolina, so I parked my...
Okay.
Check this out. I parked the bus in the back of my
Yeah, you
house
got a
here.
house
There
now.
it is,
You
the-
gotta...
Big, beautiful bus. Big,
Wait,
beautiful bus.
And for Basil, real quick, how you like my 30-inch TV? You like that?
That's that again, going back to the analog versions.
that's-
That's incredible. You got a Super Nintendo hooked up to that sucker?
64.
Actually, we have a Super Nintendo in the other room, but I have an OG Xbox hooked up right now.
You know, I'm sure somebody out there has the knowledge on this. I don't, but I'd be curious because kids of the 90s will remember that with those big old tube televisions, when you turned them on, there is a very strong static electric field up there close.
Yes.
on
You
the-
can feel
on
it from the other room.
screen.
I remember when you can turn off the TV and you felt the static or whatever it is, that aura, like dissipate.
I would be very interested to look at, probably some weirdo who's into crystals who has all the data on the effects of EMFs on tube TVs versus, OLED
where we're at
or
now with
digital
LCD or anything like that. Who knows? Maybe the whole time the tube TVs were like healing and repairing our bodies with the Teslonian.
I think it's the
Strongly
other way,
doubt that.
maybe. Yeah,
The
maybe it's killing us
Teslonian EMF
too fast.
field or
They're
something.
like, we gotta
I
slow
don't
down
know,
the killing. Give them the digital screens.
Well, that's great. Go check out everything Sam has there for you, and hopefully we'll get together. We'll get to explore the emotional intelligence aspect of your work later on. We'll get together and do some of that stuff. There you go, everybody. Slave2Servant.com, slave2servant.bandcamp.com. Even better. Got to get the dots. If there's not at least 2 dots in your webpage, I don't even know what you're doing. And we've got a ton of Canarians in North Carolina. This is truth.
Ooh,
There's a ton of them
some
everywhere.
meetups here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a meetup that tried to happen. I don't fully understand the North Carolinian mind. There's at least a dozen of them out there who are begging for reasons to get together, and I'm telling you, I don't know how to do this. You
Well,
guys got to do it yourself. But maybe
Tell him
that-
Uncle Sam has a website. Just contact me.
I was
Cool.
going to say, maybe we could do a slave to servant, maybe at your show or something there. We could get
Yeah.
some North Carolinians showing up.
We could definitely get something together.
Perfect.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Sam Swanson from Slave to Servant, thank you very much, buddy. It's always great to talk to you.
Thank you for playing such a prominent and awesome role on this. You guys made it really glue together. Thank you. And Gonz for mixing pretty much at least half of it and then mastering and sequencing it with me.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't even know you did that,
I
Gonz.
pressed
Good
them
job,
buttons. I pressed them buttons.
Yeah.
That's all I did.
Gonz. And if you want to see me spend maybe an hour and a half recording silly stuff, you can go check
Which
out.
we had to redo, by the way, because your original recording had some bad audio.
Did have to do
Yeah,
it twice. It was the will of the Lord
Yeah.
that we do it again 4 years later. It was a different world.
I still have video of me capturing it on my cell phone of the experience, the initial one. And so I've got some really golden
Oh, you got
moments
some-
that nobody's heard.
That'll be in
Secret
the special features. Yeah, special features at the end
Basil
of the DVD.
exposed, and it's just him ranting like a crazy maniac for an album.
Yeah,
like as,
I need
as
more
Crowley.
of that. That's true.
So there you have it. A fantastic conversation with our good friend, Sam Swanson. Go check out all of the stuff he's working on, including the Red Tape LP, which, again, ladies and gentlemen, it is a fantastic 33-track album that features yours truly and Basil as some ridiculous characters on the show. So go check it out. If you enjoyed this episode or any other episode of Canary Cry Radio and you'd like to support us, you can do so by becoming a producer of Canary Cry Radio or Canary Cry News Talk. All you got to do is go to canarycry.support, click around, read around, learn what the value for value model is all about, and you can decide to participate. And for the most part, especially if you are producing episode by episode, we will thank you on air. So if that's something that interests you, we really appreciate it. Go check it out at canarycry.support. And if you just need a place for all the links, because of course we have so many things going on, you can go to canarycry.party. It's basically a link tree. You can go there. You got tons of links for everything from our community to our mailing list to our text message notification system to all the platforms where we publish this podcast. So I hope you enjoyed. Go check out the Red Tape LP. It's free. You can listen to it. I did mix and master some of these songs and tracks on this album, so if you are an audiophile and you'd like to analyze my skills as a mixer and editor and mastering technician, you can go check it out as well. All right, we'll be back next week. look for another Canary Cry News Talk episode as we continue to tackle multiple times a week the crazy, crazy things that are happening in the world, which we called it, but also we got to keep calling it. It's not over. As a watchman, we're keeping our eyes on the horizon. Now, what we had been looking at on the horizon, well, it's beneath our feet now. It's here. So it's our job to continue to look beyond the horizon to see what's coming and warn everybody about it. Thank you for checking out this episode of Canary Cry Radio, episode number 186. We'll see you again soon, but until next time, think outside the cage.